The Monday Mornings podcast is presented by Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, continuous banking since 1872. Switch today and visit smb-t.com. This is the Monday Mornings podcast presented by Southern Michigan Bank and Trust. I am one of your wonderful hosts, Andy Hawley, alongside with my newly turned 50-year-old co-host, Jennifer Scanlon. You look great for 50.
I did it. I
shouldn't have said for 50. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't like the asterisks that
You
you
had
put
a
on there.
huge... Are you like, okay, now I'm 50, let's get this over with. I'm glad this shit is behind me.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of in the thick of it right now. Your mid-40s are tricky. You know, it's a big flux.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm handling my mid-40s. I have, of course, teenage daughter, parents aging.
Yeah.
And I'm... it's amazing in your mid-40s. If you don't work out, you go out of shape so quick.
Oh my gosh,
Good
it's
Lord.
so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't get any better.
I was going to say.
Just get into a good routine and stick to it.
So on the show, we try and get advice from a ton of people, and people have done just some really cool stuff. And today we have Mark Olinyk on. Mark's a venture capitalist, had some early failures, but some early successes, and it's led him to Harvest Solar. Him and his wife own today, and his son is the president of the company. Excited to talk to him a little bit. It's farming. It's not necessarily something you and I know a ton about.
No, we don't. But actually, what I thought I knew, I was wrong. Right. And so I'm really excited to just really dig in and find out more about how he took, growing up in agriculture into becoming the successful venture capitalist that has had his hand in dozens of different industries and startups and businesses, and how he just really built this cool family legacy and legacy for our community as well.
Yeah. Let's bring in Mark and then stick around after as we'll have our thoughts. But without further ado, Mark Olinyk. And we are excited to welcome in Mark Olinyk. Mark is the owner, president, and CEO at Harvest Solar, along with his partner, Wendy Olinyk. That's what you currently do. Of course, you and I have known each other since I was just a 5-year-old. First question, do you still look at me like I'm a little kid, Mark?
As I mentioned earlier, absolutely.
Yeah, that's funny. So your son, Luke, and... me, we're the same age. We grew up, and now your son's working for you. That's got to be pretty cool.
And actually, he's president.
Yeah, he's president. So are you stepping back at all?
A little bit.
Okay.
But as any business owner knows, if you own a business, you never retire.
Right.
And Wendy, my wife, and I own Harvest. Luke has an interest.
Yep.
And it's right here in Jackson.
So go ahead, John. But I want to go way back. But go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking how cool you guys grew up together, and you both are carrying on the empire or legacy that your parents built. I mean, that's got to seem like a pretty cool thing for you.
No pressure at all. No pressure at all. Mark, what was of course, you've had a long career. You've done quite a few different things. What was growing up like? What was where did you grow up, and what was life like? What did your family do for work?
I grew up on a farm between Albion and Homer.
Okay.
And there were 6 kids in our family. My parents were pretty strict Catholics, so after grade school, they said, "Well, there's a school called Lumen Christi." That's in Jackson, and that's where your guys are going to be going. As normal kids would do, we protested.
Sure.
But finally we said, "Oh, we get to drive a car," and so that's what happened. And I went to Lumen Christi.
So did you go to Albion before that, or were
a St. John's elementary school in Albion?
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So your roots are deep here locally in agriculture. Tell us a little bit about how you got your start.
Yeah.
Well, coming from a farm, I was pretty ambitious. Like I said, there were 6 kids in our family, and everybody did their thing. And after Lumen Christi, I went to Grand Valley for a year, and I bought my first 40 acres.
Okay.
When I was a freshman.
So you knew farming was going to be part of your life?
When
no doubts?
When I was a kid, I was driving tractors 7 years old.
Sure.
And you know, my dad would get us all set to go and say, go on, go do the thing. So we were baling hay or picking rocks early in our, you know, 6, 7, 8 years old. That's just the way it was.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anything different.
Sure.
So I said, all right, well, I guess I'll try to farm. and tried to farm in a big way. I bought my first tractor at about the same time when I think I was a senior in high school.
Wow.
And because I worked, even as a kid, I worked on the farm. I also worked at a typewriter shop, cleaning typewriters.
Oh my gosh.
Worked at A&P, and so I guess I was one of those guys who wanted to work and earn money.
Where do you think that work ethic came from? Your upbringing, or is it something that maybe you were just born with and had the tick for?
I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but when your dad says, "I'll give you a penny a bale to help me put this hay," I go, "Oh, I can actually make a few bucks."
Was that good money, a penny a bale?
No, it wasn't. But I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
That's crazy. So could you imagine, like, just, okay, farming, now I'm on my own.
Yeah.
I got 40 acres, a tractor. So where do you go from there?
Well, we rented land and I farmed, went to Grand Valley for a year. And then a buddy of mine from Grand Valley and I decided to go to Michigan State. So we went to Michigan State. And so in Michigan State, we were there. He went on to Notre Dame and became a successful lawyer, and I didn't. So.
But look at you now.
But I went there and farmed all along in between, and finally I left Michigan State with missing one class.
Really?
Yeah, missing one class, and then got married, and we got serious about farming. And back then, you could buy a farm with almost no money down.
Right.
The owners would typically finance it.
Oh, sure.
So, you know, Jeannie, my wife, and I bought a farm, and money was, you know, it was expensive, but it was so easy to get.
Sure.
I remember going to a bank in Elgin at 21, 22 years old and saying, I need $250,000.
No,
And they gave it to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 or 3 signatures, 20 minutes later, and I walked out and he said, well, take this over and open up a checking account, and you're good.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Well,
stars.
we did that. We farmed until we couldn't farm anymore.
Okay.
We built that thing in 3 or 4 years. We were farming 2,500 acres.
Oh, my goodness.
And come to find out, you know, we were renting land at a higher premium than the established farmers, so we were making enemies along the way, and eventually it crashed.
Yeah.
At about 25 years old, we filed for bankruptcy, and farms went away, and
Sure.
and it was tough because just a year earlier, we had a guy that died on the farm. He got tangled up in a piece of farm equipment, and so it was one ugly thing after another.
Yeah.
So tell me about filing bankruptcy at 25. Did that just kind of, did you see the writing on the wall with farming? Was it the economy at the time? Was it a series of things? Was it your age?
It was probably my ignorance.
Sure.
Number one, because when you go to an agricultural equipment dealer, and he says, all you got to do is sign here, and we'll give you the equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And that's what I did. And so we had a lot of equipment. The price of grain was in the tank. And you know, we had this nice guy die on the farm. And it was just so many things that went wrong. The most difficult part of that was when you have an auction and all the people that I mentioned earlier, they're there.
Yeah.
believe me, and they're talking.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you just want to go hide.
Right.
But you don't. You say, all right, I got to get through this.
Yeah.
But that was tough.
At 25, I mean,
Yeah,
what
that
an
was
early
tough.
life lesson.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, and even to have that level of maturity at 25, like, no, you don't put your head in your sand. You face it right on and you regroup. And
Yeah.
I'd like to know what that regroup process looked like. Like, what did you do the next day?
You had probably dropped a couple MFers before you got back to it.
Well, it was very difficult, but come to find out, there was a little bit of a silver lining.
Okay.
Because we also had loans through the FHA. It's the government entity, and these guys were tough on us. So they took whatever they could, and I get that, and they deserved it. But we had 100,000 bushels of corn in grain bins on our property.
Okay.
Well, the value of that corn was, we took a loan on it from the government, and it was below that. So they said, well, that's worthless. We don't want that. So then you go to court. You go to bankruptcy court and back and forth. So when it was being finalized a year later, let me back up. We kept 40 acres. My dad helped me out there, and he bid that back in.
Okay.
So we worked something out there. So we did get to keep the 40 acres, which the grain bins were on.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we're in court a year after that, and the guy from the government said, "Well, we'll take that grain now," and the judge says, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, at the time, the grain was worth, I don't know, $2,
Yeah.
and it's worth $3 now." And it was once they established that we were bankrupt, that drew the line. And the judge says, "Nope, that's not your grain. That's Mark and Jeannie's grain." So it was worth $100,000.
Oh, nice.
So you asked how we crawled out.
Yeah.
It was a gift.
Yeah.
So the judge said, "Congratulations, Mark."
Wow.
Basically saying, "Don't F up anymore."
Yeah.
But
Amazing.
here's your chance.
And
Here's
did
your
that-
gift
did
and
that
then the
tr-
lesson.
And did that trigger the next business move for you?
No, because after that, there was a large farmer, the largest farmer in the state, hired me to be the farm manager.
Okay.
Oh.
Horton Farms out of Teconcha. I enjoyed the guy. Once again, he was another one of these mavericks but he was big, and a lot of equipment, a lot of employees, and he figured, well, and one of the reasons he wanted and hired me was because I had 2,500 acres of leased land.
Okay.
He wanted that.
Sure.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
But I remember the first year, he said, "I'll pay you $15 an hour."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I don't know, I'm going to live on that." And he said, "Take it or leave it."
Wow.
But he did give me a little bonus on the land I slid over. It still had to be in my name.
Sure.
Because some of the people that we rented the land from didn't like Rodney Horton.
Oh.
So we had to play that game.
Was it tough for you going to work for someone else right after you had kind of went gung-ho and...
It was.
Yeah.
It was difficult, but again, you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, though, right?
Oh my God. Well, clearly not everybody can do it, but
Right.
many of the biggest success stories have those types of learning lessons early on,
Yeah.
and it's what you do with it
Right.
that defines you.
Yep. And so that's what happened. So worked with Horton Farms for 3 or 4 years, and then, as luck would have it, he had an auction.
Okay.
Because the market didn't get any better.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
It was still tough, and land was very inexpensive at that time.
Yeah.
Land now that is $5,000, $7,000, $8,000 an acre
Yeah.
was $400, $500, $600 an acre. back then.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, so Horton Farms owned a grain elevator in Hudson,
Okay.
and I drove back and forth, and I was involved with that for a while.
Yeah.
And then somebody from that we ended up hiring a manager there, and so when Horton Farms had their auction, they spun off the grain elevator.
Okay.
And he was buying it on a contract, not being financed through a bank, but
Okay.
through a person.
So he wanted just that.
No, we wanted that.
You
Yeah.
wanted it.
Yeah,
Well, I know
yeah,
you
yeah.
did. You got it.
Yeah. So the manager of the grain elevator, who was pretty sharp dude, and Mark and family got together, and we just took it over for zero. We walked in there, no money. And then at that time, we knew of all this grain that was underpriced, sitting in grain bins on farms all over the country, frankly. Because what happened is when you have grain, and I think it still happens today, you can take a loan from the government.
Okay.
And say the loan is $2.50. Back then, it's different now. But back then, say it's $2.50, and you put it in your storage bins, and the government will give you that $2.50. But after 3 years, if the price hasn't gone to a trigger, like maybe $3,
Okay.
the government just takes it and forgives the loan.
Really?
So that's what was happening.
Okay.
And Bob, my partner, and myself, we saw that. We saw that happening. We said, we need a grain elevator because we need to store some of this grain because it's going to be released from the government. And it's exactly what happened.
So this leads to an interesting story where you actually, met with officials, USDA officials, came up with really a solution and ran the logistics of this operation, correct?
You're talking about the grain storage?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that. I mean, this is
that's a big deal for two punks.
Now, did you guys realize how big of a deal it was going to be for two punks?
Well, here's what happened. Maybe some of you have seen at grain elevators a great big tarped pile
Yes.
out back.
Yes.
There's grain in there, most likely in this area. It's corn.
Okay.
And so we had space behind the grain elevator in Hudson, and we said, all right, let's see, because every county it used to be Commodity Credit Corporation, that I think it's called FMC or something like that now. I don't know. I'm not involved with that anymore. But so there are counties, and they'll call the grain elevator saying, we have so much of this grain being released in our county, do you have space for it? And they would pay you so much to take it, so much a month for storage, and then so much to ship it out.
Okay.
And we said, no, but we're building a pile out back, and it would hold 1.5 million bushels. And so we said, okay, well, we bought the equipment, they built it, and so it goes up a belt conveyor down a big tube with holes in it.
Okay.
And as it fills, you keep raising up this ring with this big circus tent.
Yes.
Stuff there. And so we did that. We filled that in 10 days. And we said, holy shit, we need more storage.
Yeah.
And so we leased another grain storage elevator on the other, just down into Ohio. And then I went on the road because he was doing he was the manager, and he knew that stuff. And,
Yeah.
And so I went on the road looking for a building because I had experience with Horton storing grain in the building. So we went around all the way to Clare, Michigan, all the way to the lake, or the Detroit River.
Okay.
And we came close to actually leasing an old Firestone building on the river in the Detroit area. As luck would have it, we found a building right under our nose, the old Clark Equipment building in Michigan Center.
Oh my goodness.
And it's big. It was like 765,000 square feet.
Wow.
That's 17 acres under roof.
Right off the highway.
Right off the highway. And we
How many
Middle of
acres?
the state.
17 acres under roof.
I didn't realize how big that is.
It's big.
Jeez Louise.
It's really big. So then we said, hell, can we even fill this thing? But so we went to South Bend, Indiana to negotiate rent. They go, what the hell do you mean you're gonna ruin our building? And we said, you don't want that building anyway.
Right.
We don't
Right.
care.
Yeah.
Right.
So they rented it to us for 2 years.
Okay.
At next to nothing, because you get a building that big, and unless you've got a use for it,
Yeah.
it's nothing but a burden. So we rented that building, and we quickly figured, how are we going to get the grain all over this building?
Yeah.
Well, we hired a company out of Lansing to build these belt conveyors on wheels, and they did that very quickly.
Wow.
We had to dig a pit so these trucks would come in so they could dump this. I mean, we did all this within just a couple of weeks.
What?
Nuts.
It happened to have a scale there, which was, we needed a scale.
Yeah.
It happened to have one there.
Yeah.
So we could, the truck,
In the building.
So you're
that
loading
you were,
trucks.
that you were leasing.
well, on the driveway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and we have to test the grain, because drain, has either it's moisture content,
Okay.
if it's dirty, if there's any any issues with disease or something. So
Sure.
we have to probe every truck. So we weigh them in, we dump them, and then we weigh out the truck.
Okay.
So then you could you subtract it, and
Right.
there's the amount of grain. So that was a good piece too. We didn't know it, but within literally days after we made the announcement that we had space, because
Yeah.
all the grain elevators were full.
Sure.
The government didn't know what to do with this grain.
Wow.
So within days, we had hundreds and hundreds of trucks headed our way.
Oh my gosh.
But you think about it, it's a perishable. You
Yeah.
just can't
Right.
throw it on a pile.
Right.
It'll spoil. So you have to have aeration, and so and we ended up buying 120 fans, 5 miles of what we called grain tile. And grain tile is 15-inch to 18-inch plastic tile with holes in it, with a nylon sock pulled over that connected to each other. So we had a grid of this throughout the building.
Oh my gosh.
And these 120 fans around the building, forcing air into this grid through the corn, and then we need electricity. So we got a hold of consumers because the place was dead.
Yeah.
It's been sitting there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And there's a substation there. So consumers, they told us, they said, well, we got your substation all ready to go.
Okay.
Here's a bill for $15,000.
Oh my.
And we said, I'm not paying you $15,000.
Yeah.
I said, we're going to give you $100,000 and $200,000 in new business.
Right.
And they said, either you pay us $15,000 or you
We're
don't
gonna
get
turn
turned
you
on.
on.
So we said, all right, we'll let you know. Well, we went down and bought 2 generators.
Did you really?
Yeah, we ran that. We ran all the energy we needed from our own generators there. And back then, diesel fuel was about 50 cents
Sure.
a gallon. So they called back a couple of days later. We're ready to turn that on. And I said, you go tell your boss's boss how you guys just screwed up because you're not getting any business from
Yeah.
us. And we ran that for 4 years.
Oh, you're kidding.
We
On
ran it for
generators.
4 years. All that grain was in there for 4 years after being on a farm for 3.
Oh my gosh.
So that grain was stored for 7 years.
Wow.
Is that what turned you into a maverick? That little
I was
run?
called a maverick by a bank earlier.
Yeah.
This banker did. But anyway, so we said, we're on our own and let's do this thing.
So how old are you at this point?
69.
No. At the point
I'm
of
69 now.
yeah. How old were you at that point? 26, 27. So you're 26 or 27 years old. You're telling consumers to piss off.
Yeah.
You use whatever engineering mind that you just inherently have in your
Well, so it wasn't just
4-year
me.
education
Sure.
minus 1 class.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to have some. I mean, you also had to be a salesman because you had to convince people that this was a good idea.
Well, and we didn't have any money.
Right.
We did all this with almost no money.
That's crazy.
We signed a lease. All you need to sign a lease is the first month's rent.
Yeah.
So we had that, and our attorney at the time, great friend of ours, he said, "How are you guys going to do this? You don't have any money," and we're already into it.
We are doing it.
And we were going to say, I don't know. I guess we're going to tell the people that we owe money to hold on for a bit.
Yeah.
I mean. And he got nothing. He got nothing to lose.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
Bob Dylan.
So it ends up becoming a wildly successful venture for you.
Well, so what we did is we did need money.
Yeah.
So my attorney said, "How much money do you need?" Because he saw that it was going to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, "Give us $200,000. We'll pay you back 4 in 2 years."
It's amazing.
And he said, "You got a deal." So we did it. We ended up paying it back in 18 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so
crazy.
so that grain, we figured with all the investment that we had, we needed the grain to stay there a year and a half.
Okay.
It stayed there for 4 years.
Yeah.
So that was
And you're making money on renting that space the entire time.
per bushel.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had, between that place and a couple other spots, we had over 11 million bushels of government
Oh
grain.
my God. That's crazy.
Right here.
So were you working nonstop? What type of work-life balance was that at the time for you, Mark?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
You can ask Luke or ask Jeannie at the time.
Yeah.
There was a stint there that I never left there for 10 days.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Just wash up, do whatever
Sure.
you got to do.
Yeah.
But I would go there. We went there because we rented a house. We moved out of the place in Marshall because I said we got to get closer. So we rented a house. And I went there one morning, early in the morning, and I counted over 100 trucks lined up.
It's
Oh
crazy.
no, sir.
No, from Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio.
Wow.
I mean, it was incredible.
I mean, let's talk about how that made you feel, because I mean, you're young, just came back from bankruptcy, you were working for someone else for 15 an hour, and now, I mean, you essentially made it, right? Like, I mean, maybe you didn't think that at the time.
We didn't get a check yet.
Okay.
we didn't collect one check for probably 3 months.
Okay.
Oh wow.
But, and the equipment would break down.
Sure.
A funny story so these guys and we were taking grain in for a while, 24 hours a day.
Jeez.
So the grain would dump into this pit with bars into a pit on the driveway. And that building is not far from a river. So every once in a while there'd be water down there. So we had a pump running there to keep the water out. They're dumping grain. It went from one conveyor, piggyback, to another conveyor that we could move around like a snake. And then there was what we called a slinger that we bought from a company in California. So the grain would go in, and one belt's going one way, the other belt's going the other way. So you could shoot it, and it would shoot it up, and we could steer it. It was self-propelled, so you could pile this grain, in there. So that's how we did that.
Amazing.
But one night we broke down. It's kind of a funny story, and we broke down. And all these truckers are pissed because they get paid so much around,
Sure.
and they're sitting there hour after hour after hour. And I said, all right, put these guys in the back of the pickup trucks, 2 pickup trucks, and give them all $20, whatever it was. Send them all to Potters.
Oh, stop.
That's exactly what we
Made
did.
the world right.
And so they're all jumping in the truck, and all of a sudden we're all buddies.
Jeez, that's hilarious.
Love it. Potter saves
Was
the
that your
day.
idea?
I don't know whose idea it was, but it was a good one.
Well, you were young at the time, so it was a good idea. That's amazing. So you guys, you have that success. How long did that go on for?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
So at that point, now you got a little bit of money in your pocket, and now you can be a businessman, correct?
I suppose.
So that's what you tried to do. I remember my first recollection of you in business was either we were out at one of your plants in Marshall or Albion fooling around and spilled some water on the floor, and you fucking yelled at us like we had just, burned the place down.
I'm a nicer guy now.
Yeah.
He's softened.
So that was Eagle Satellite and Communications.
Yeah, Eagle Satellite. Yeah.
And I was telling Jennifer those big satellite dishes that her upper middle class friends had on their house.
Yes.
And that was your business.
Come to find out, the guy that bought our house, because we did sell the house in Marshall,
Okay.
His name was Fred Holman, and he owned a stamping plant in Battle Creek, as well as 4 other stamping plants in the Detroit area. German dude, nice guy, one of my mentors. And so he bought that, and then he said, what do you mean you're storing grain? And so he came over and he said, what the hell is going on?
Quick operation.
That started our relationship.
Okay.
And his son, Fred Jr., he's also, they're both gone now. But he was selling these large earth station antennas, big stuff. Not bigger than you'd use for your house.
Okay.
It'd be used for like a TV station.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
And he was selling those, and these little ones were just coming out.
Yeah.
DirecTV,
Sure.
Dish Network, and there's another company called PrimeStar.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And so these little antennas, we started doing something and worked something out with PrimeStar, and I'm trying to recall. I couldn't do business with his son.
Okay.
It was difficult.
Sure.
So Fred Sr. said, "Don't let that stop us. You and I can be partners. Fred Jr. can handle the big Earth Station stuff,
Yeah.
and we'll start a little company and do the little stuff."
Okay.
And we did that.
Yeah.
And we got a contract with PrimeStar.
Okay.
We sold those guys a lot of antennas,
Mm-hmm.
and we also sold them another business we got into. They needed these boxes. They're like little connection boxes you put on the side of your house,
Yep.
where they, your RG6 and the different pieces, phone cords go in there.
Yep.
And I was in Colorado talking to one of the buyers there. We became good friends, and he said, we're going to have a need for some of these plastic injection molded boxes. So I said, I want to do it. And he goes, what do you know about plastic injection molding? And I said, I don't know anything about it, but if it can be done, why can't we do it? So at the time, Aeroquip was selling some equipment in Spring Arbor. It was a plastic injection molding company. So we went there and bought a bunch of equipment. Didn't even have the deal yet, but we bought the equipment, had it over. We hired guys for plastic injection molding from there. And so I went back there, and he said, I was sitting at the board table talking about this project at PrimeStar, and he said, well, we got a guy. And he said, this crazy son of a bitch has already bought the equipment, and we haven't even given a purchase order yet.
Oh my God.
And somebody there must have said, that's the kind of people we like.
Yeah.
And so we got the contract, and we sold them over 1 million of those.
Wow.
And just made those one after another after another.
Wow.
And we powder coated antennas. We bought some powder coat equipment used from somebody up in Traverse City first, and then one thing led to another, and we just kept doing different things.
Amazing.
You were so resourceful.
Well, some people would say that, other people would say you take too many risks, but
Yeah. I mean, but isn't that so where do you get the balls to take those risks?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's from early failure, learning a little bit, but sometimes you just, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
but sometimes you say, yeah, there's an opportunity. I think I'll do it.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it. I recommend getting into a business and focusing on it and making it grow, not bouncing around. Because when we would bounce out of something because we couldn't go any further.
Yeah.
So we either sold a company, shut it down, or grew it into something different.
Would you say that some of your early decisions would be decisions that you would talk your children out of?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think everybody needs to get knocked down a little bit to learn something, but the kids are all doing quite well on their own.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I want to circle back to that because I need some advice from this guy. But I think the way that you seek opportunities in such an innovative way, and then it just parlays into the next opportunity where you're creating industries and jobs, and it's so incredible. And so I'd like to fast forward a little bit from your selling the boxes and the antennas to where you come now, because I think it comes full circle when you told consumers to piss off, and now you have this industry.
Now you guys work
consumers.
together, right? Yeah.
We love consumers.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So, but now you're in that realm. You're in that energy field, and I'm just curious how we got there.
Another fun story. Let's see what I was doing. Fred, this partner of mine and mentor, he eventually sold all of his business and he retired. But he, like I said, he didn't want to be bored.
Yeah.
So he started making these shingles that resemble slate.
Oh, I remember this.
And he was making them in a building that he and I used to own in Albion, and then I sold it to him. And Wendy, my wife, she stayed on with these large antennas.
Oh.
because that was fairly successful. And frankly, that allowed us to travel all over the world. We because with these big Earth station antennas, your customers are everywhere. It's not a local business; it's an international business. And actually, she did quite well with that. But so Fred, somebody approached him, and about making, this plastics injection molding idea, but he goes, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to stamp this stuff because he's a genius. He built a company of 850 employees without a high school education.
That's nuts.
Wow.
From Germany. Came here, couldn't speak the language.
Oh my gosh.
So, really cool dude.
Good mentor to have.
One of the best. But anyway, so I said, I remember sitting at the oak tree with him, and he's talking about making these frames for doorways and stuff for houses. That somebody approached him, and then somehow it got brought up that the same product could be used for roofing. I said, Fred, there's a shit ton more stuff up on the roof than that. And one thing led to another, and he said, I'll make it, you sell it. Okay, so it took a little time, but I ended up with the right people, hiring 33 distributors throughout the country.
Wow.
And so he would make it, and it worked out really well. Again, all about financing.
Yeah.
I negotiated 90-day terms with him. I had 30-day terms with everyone else, so
Got it.
didn't need a bank.
Yeah.
So I would sell it to the distributors, we'd get our money, and I'd pay Fred. And that's how it worked. And he was okay with it. I was okay with it. So that went on. Then that business was sold, and that's still going on now.
Is it really?
One of the large
I love that.
roofing
I remember
company.
you put that on. I think you put it on Jeannie's house. I remember seeing
in
it, and
Chelsea.
I thought, this is the next thing. It's unbelievable. Have you ever seen one?
I have.
It looks just
I
like
love it.
it looks just
like-
like Slate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah. It's beautiful architectural look.
So his company was Max Manufacturing. My company was called Max Sales.
Okay.
And everything, I said, as long as everything you make has to go through Max Sales.
Sure.
So we
Okay.
worked it out. And anyway, that sold. He sold that.
Okay.
And during that time, now I can get to where your question is. So somebody approached me, another local, I think he's almost a genius, Rich Bacon. Rich Bacon lives on Clark Lake, and he's pretty eccentric, but he's a very, very smart man. And his two boys are too, Nick and Jake. But anyway, he approached me because he came up with this small wind turbine concept. And it's very interesting, and it's still, it should be marketed today, but it's not. And what it is you could take two wires and you can connect them between poles, between trees, and you could stack these things up. And they could be UPS shippable, and it's a really good idea. But he was trying to get together with a company called Cascade Engineering in Grand Rapids to partner with him, because the owner of Cascade Engineering is into renewables, and so he was struggling to get that done. He said, Mark, maybe you ought to help us or become a partner somehow and work this out. Because he said all he wants to do is send me to the engineers, and they poo-poo it. And so we worked that out, and I ended up going over there, and somehow it worked. So we partnered there, and I was on the Bacon side of the partnership, and Keller was on the Keller side. The owner of Cascade was on the other side, and we worked on this stuff for 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And spent a lot of money doing it, and eventually it just stopped.
Okay.
Unfortunately, one side didn't think the invention was ready for market. The other side said, we got a lot of money in this, let's market what we have and keep improving it.
Yep.
And it just didn't work. It was very unfortunate. But that got me hooked on renewables.
Okay.
And during that time, myself and a couple others would travel to Europe, either looking for investors or trying to educate ourselves on wind turbines for what they're doing. So that didn't work, but by going to Europe, after that, I don't want to call it a failure because there's a lot of great things that came out of that. But after that, I said, well, you guys might poo-poo this, but I'm going to start bringing some wind turbines in from Europe. Small stuff, the stuff that would be on farms, bigger than houses, but medium-sized stuff. And so we started importing wind turbines from Germany and Ireland, and that was evolving. And now we own the building. Fred and I own the building that we're at now on High Street. And eventually, Wendy bought it because she was still doing the large antenna stuff and some pieces and parts for Dish Network. That was her deal. And my brother, we sold him the powder coating that we used to have. So that's still in that building now. So we started trying to sell these wind turbines, and didn't even think about solar. It was too expensive. But then we went to trade shows, a lot of them, spent a lot of money on trade shows,
And who were you marketing to at those trade shows? Like farmers?
Mostly farmers.
Okay.
Yep. With my farm background.
Keeping it within the...
Well, because I'm thinking,
Speak the language.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, it's when you talk about renewables, farmers make so much sense because I've always said they've got friendly townships.
Yes.
We're not talking about Ann Arbor, Detroit, or something more challenging.
Good point.
Friendly townships and plenty of space.
Yep.
And so I said, I think we can get into this. So we were trying to sell these, and we went to a lot of trade shows. I mean, we still go to 30, 40 trade shows a year.
Oh, wow.
And so we went down to a trade show in Louisville. It's a very big trade show. As a matter of fact, we're going there in 2 weeks. And this guy came up to us from Kentucky and said, why don't you guys sell solar? He said, keep pissing around with this wind stuff. And we said, I don't know, we don't know, blah, 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 blah. So the next year we were there again, and we just had one panel laying up against a pickup truck. Yeah. And he came back and said, are you in solar now? And I said, I don't know, kind of. He goes, come on down, talk to me. So we went down there and boom, 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 started selling. In Kentucky. Yeah. Yeah, we sold over, in 2 years, we sold over, 18 months, probably over 100 systems right there in Western Kentucky.
That's amazing.
Oh my goodness.
So the company is doing well, and you're a regional company, national company really, but is it more regional?
We've sold solar, but here's what happened just before I answer.
Sure.
So the price of solar started coming down, price of wind didn't, and the communication between us and Germany wasn't. In Germany, when they say we stop work at 5, they literally mean
we're gone.
If it's mid-sentence, they're about ready to hang up on you.
Yes.
And it's only 11 or 12 o'clock. So our guys are saying, wait a minute, we've got some issues.
Yeah.
Because they were complicated. And the communication was tough. The price of solar kept coming down. So we switched. So at the time, though, we were running 2 companies. We were running the satellite stuff. And I think the big stuff was sold off, but we still made tons and tons of parts, mainly for Dish Network, mainly the brackets and stuff like that for the antennas. But so we went from, the satellite stuff actually financed our rollover into renewables.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah. And Wendy and I became partners, and we sell solar into. We've sold solar into 10 or 11 states.
Okay.
But we focus on 3 or 4, the local states.
My sense is there's a big disconnect between experts like yourself and the general public on what is possible with solar. Would you find that to be accurate?
It's probably a fair statement.
What is it that the general public is just so confused by? Is it misinformation?
Well, I would say half of the public thinks that you can put 2 or 3 panels on a house and it runs everything. It takes space.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of space. A panel the size of this table, which is about 3 foot 2 by 5 maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's about enough when the sun's out. About enough solar energy to run 200-watt light bulbs.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's not really that much.
Right.
You're not going to run your dryer or your hair dryer for that matter. I mean,
Sure.
they take a lot of energy, or your furnace or anything.
Okay.
So it takes a lot. And they think that it's inexpensive, and it's not.
Right.
It's expensive. The government knows that, and it allows some incentives to help take that edge off. But other people get it, and you can, we deal with both extreme sides of the spectrum. You can be a tree hugger and do it because you don't like fossil fuels.
Sure.
Or you can be a business person and do it for the dollars.
Right.
And everybody in between. So we're not political.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, it's so many questions coming out because it's just such
I'll
a...
shut up now and you can ask questions.
No, not at all. We're seeing more and more solar farms. This is a fairly new term for the general public,
Sure.
but we're seeing them more and more. And I think people are just curious, like, how does that work? Who owns them? Where does the energy go? How does it work?
It's a good question. Typically, there's two ways that solar farms, now you're talking about the tens or hundreds of acres
Yes.
Sure.
of solar that you see in fields, it's either owned by a utility
Okay.
or it's owned privately and the energy is sold to a utility.
Okay.
And there's only one utility that can buy it, and that's the utility that happens to have the infrastructure
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
Or they can resell it, but it has to go. For instance, if there's a solar farm outside of Jackson, chances are it's going to be either owned by consumers or consumers is buying the energy on what's called a power purchase agreement.
Okay.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you do work with the DNR all the time. There's of course there's a little hullabaloo up north. I think it's a 400-acre solar farm that might go in. What are, like you said, is it folks that just don't understand the solar, understand all renewables? Or is it just people kind of just take a hard side one or the other without doing any research? I guess you have that in all business.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's both. I mean, first of all, Harvest was not involved with that
Right.
program. We are involved with DNR just to explain how we're involved. We're involved at their fisheries or at their offices, and we'll do some smaller installations around the state for those types of locations and offices. We haven't been involved with any larger stuff with the DNR, and I can see both sides. I looked into it a little bit, and it's my understanding that 400 acres is kind of scrubby stuff. So if a farmer owned it or just a landowner, it probably wouldn't be a big deal because, when you look at some of these farms,
Sure.
they sometimes and we clear some areas to make it work. But in this case, the DNR is supposed to be protecting, and I kind of get it.
Yeah.
On one hand, but on the other hand, like I said, if it was anybody else's property, it probably would not be in the news.
Makes
Okay.
sense. Makes sense.
So when we see the Harvest Solar trucks around town, what you guys do is you go in and you install the equipment and the infrastructure for whoever owns the farm, or do you guys own any of the farms, or how does that work?
Typically, what Harvest Solar does is we sell, we engineer, we design, and we build the systems,
Got it.
and then we'll take care of the maintenance after if somebody wants us to.
Sure.
And we will sell anything from a size. We don't really focus on homes. We start with small businesses and farms, and lately we're getting more into that utility scale size of installations. And to answer your question, the family does own a couple of not real big systems, but megawatt plus.
Sure.
It's not hundreds of acres, but tens of acres.
Sure.
So I think, we know because we live here, but the world kind of looks at Michigan and doesn't think, oh, sunshine and great place to handle renewable solar energy. What do you say to that?
it isn't necessarily only on how much sun is available.
Okay.
It's what does it cost to install? What are the incentives? What's your rate?
Okay.
I can give you an example. The UP of Michigan. Couldn't think of a worse place for solar, right?
Right.
Well, it's not bad, and I'll tell you why. They're paying 25 to 30 cents a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Here we pay about 15 cents.
Okay.
So let's assume the cost to install was the same. Your return on investment might be better in the UP than here.
Wow.
It might be better than here than in Arizona if they're paying 6 or 7 cents.
Oh,
A lot
that's
more
true.
factors than the
There is.
sunlight available.
It's just
which-
not sunlight.
Right.
And now the manufacturers are manufacturing solar panels that are called bifacial.
Okay.
So not only where the sun hits it, but anything that bounces off the ground, you'll get some. You'll pick up some energy. So for instance, on a nice sunny day like today,
Yeah.
with the snow on the ground, that
Oh,
snow
yeah.
is a great reflector.
Oh yeah.
And there are times during the wintertime that the solar will produce more
Really?
during an hour than in the summertime.
That's amazing.
No kidding.
Because it wants to stay cooler too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You mentioned you were 69 years old. I didn't mention that. You did. Is
I thought that was a question.
is this you got anything more up your sleeve? Or is this you got grandkids, family all over.
We love this business.
Yeah.
And of all the things I've been involved with, this one by far has the most legs.
Okay.
Really?
I keep telling that, we've got 85 to 90 people that work at Harvest right now, and
Wow.
and I keep telling these people, I said, you guys can take this to the moon.
Yeah.
I mean, there's such an
Literally.
opportunity here.
Yeah.
We do quite well now, but this thing ought to be 3-4x in 3-4 years.
Wow.
Oh, that's
That's
incredible.
amazing.
So, Mark, one of the biggest things we try to accomplish on the podcast is just to find out what makes these cool people in cool industries get up and out of bed every Monday morning and go after it. And I'm just wondering what drives you.
You're a cool guy, by the way, Mark.
Yeah.
Haven't heard that in a while. I hope the time to say opposite. I guess it's the ride.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's the ride.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun. You never know what's going to happen when the next phone call or even when I'm home, because I'm trying to stay home at least half the time now. But I find myself looking at the phone saying, "How come no one's calling?"
You're hungry for it.
Well,
You enjoy doing business.
yeah. I mean, Wendy and Luke are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Because Wendy is involved
Oh, yeah.
every day and deeply involved. And as is Luke, and then we've got a great crew.
Yeah.
Of all the little pieces that I've played with over the last 30 or 40 years, I've never enjoyed the group as much as I enjoy this group.
That's great.
Bunch of smart people, and we're all pretty tight, and it's good.
It's fun going into work then.
Yeah, it is.
You went back and got your MBA late in life. Was that a personal thing for you?
Well, I couldn't do that until I finished my class
Yeah, the
at
one
Michigan
credit.
State.
One
Yeah,
class.
I forgot. I
So-
totally
so-
looked over that.
So we were talking to the kids about, college, this and that. They said, "Dad, you didn't even finish college. What do you got to talk about?"
Oh, jeez.
Shit, you're right. So I called up Michigan State, and they said, "Well, things have changed. You not only have to take the one class, you've got to take 13 credits."
Oh,
And I said,
stars.
"Bullshit, I'm
Yeah.
not doing that."
Yeah.
So we went back and forth, maybe 6 months, and finally got tired of me. They said, "Fine, come on up here, take your humanities class." And not humanities, human resource class.
Okay.
Oh.
And get the hell out of here. So I went there.
It's funny that it
and-
was human resources.
yeah, that was it. And so I went there and got that. And then, I can't remember, maybe it was either Luke or Sydney. They're talking about going to grad school.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, you really ought to think about that because it could help you." And they said, "What about you?" I said, "Oh, come on." And so at the ripe old age of 56, I went and applied to Michigan for the EMBA program and went through that hell.
Yeah.
No, it was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I did that, and Luke followed, and he did it
Yeah.
here a couple years ago.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Such a cool story, cool family, and again, you probably had opportunities to to leave the state, try something new, but staying in Michigan, I think that's pretty cool.
Well, we like it here.
Yeah.
It's done very well for us, and it's our speed. I'm not a coastal guy.
Yeah.
A couple of the girls are now, and they probably will come back around.
Yeah.
But in Sydney, I think I mentioned, is about ready to have a baby in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's exciting.
Very exciting. Everyone's all grown up. Do you have any, while I have you in this room, I'm going to ask you, do you have any advice for me at 42 years old? You probably haven't given me any advice in a long, long time.
I remember scolding you one time.
You scolded me a lot. You must have had a bad day at the office. You come home and scold me and Lou. No. Any advice for me, kind of, going through my midlife crisis, if you will. So.
Well, I think that mentors are important, and I think taking risks are important. What are you gonna do? Fail? Who cares? How many years you got? I mean, not just you, but anybody. Oh. So you take risks. You surround yourself with great people, and you pick up a mentor or two along the way. And if you got an idea, that's run with it.
How do you feel about being a mentor? You have been a mentor to Andy throughout his life, and it sounds like to your kids as well. Do you reflect on that and recognize it?
No, I don't really recognize it, but if somebody asks me a question, I'll give them an answer, even though they may not want to hear it.
For sure.
Yeah,
And our kids are right there.
Yep.
That's what a
and
good
sometimes
mentor
they
does.
won't ask the question because they don't want to hear the answer. But we're proud of the kids, but I have had some of their friends, say, "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" And probably more than half the time they don't like my answer.
Yeah. Well, it's good that they hear it anyways. I had fun today.
Yeah, me too.
That was
I'm
cool.
inspired. I'm going to go take some more risks, and maybe I'm going to go back to school.
I'm going to take a risk. I'm not going back to school. I'll tell you that.
Together.
Mark, thanks so much for being with us. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
the time. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
The Monday Mornings Podcast is presented by Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, continuous banking since 1872. Switch today and visit smb-t.com.
Well, once again, we're leaving the studio better than we were when we entered.
You know what I need to do?
What?
Take a risk.
Ooh, are you feeling that
Throw some
itch?
balls and take a risk.
Yeah.
But what risk? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think any father of a beautiful teenage
I'm not
girl
taking any risks.
just take it all, I mean, every day is a risk. But you know what, Andy, you do. You are taking a risk. You invested in this family business
Sure.
and are helping it go in directions, I don't even think your parents dreamt of many, many moons ago when they started this media company. So I'm really proud of you. And I think you got a lot of Mark in you.
I appreciate that. But, I still got a handful of years to go in my 40s. You got through them. Unscathed.
Well, I just made it look easy.
But no, it's a big decade.
It is a big decade, and you're like I said, you're in the thick of it. But hold on,
All right.
you're doing great things. In our morning show, actually, I really give a lot of credit to that for helping me get through it because it gave me something new and exciting and a passion and a hobby. So maybe that's what you need is a new passion or hobby.
There you go. I think we helped each other. Got you through your midlife crisis. Got me through the pandemic. Taught me how to be on camera and things like that. But no, I think what I learned from Mark is like what he said about who cares, right?
Yeah.
And again,
What do you have to lose?
And I saw this quote the other day, and I'm gonna steal it, and I can't remember who originally said it. It was repeated, but I think it might go along the lines of don't ever accept criticism from people you wouldn't take advice from. And I'm not sure if I sent you that or not. I might have sent it to Adam back there because I think Aaron Rodgers was one who mentioned that. It's not Aaron's quote, I can tell you that. But it meant a lot to me.
I don't know if I feel like that's something we might have exchanged a couple times over the years because it's something that always pops up right when I need it. And that is so true. And I think it's funny too how his life's ebb and flows and his businesses just pivoted and he went along with it. And I think sometimes when we're in the middle of a flux in life, we're hesitant to the change. And I really appreciate the way he was just open to it and went all in.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. We're halfway through our first season of the Monday Mornings podcast.
Holy smokes.
I know, crazy 6 episodes. Please like and subscribe on all of our social media channels. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels. There's tons of content there. And then, of course, our Facebook page as well. Send us a message. Let us know what you thought of the show. Thanks again to Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, ready for better banking switch today. Also, I'd like to thank our regional partners, Partners Bulk Logistics, Printer Source Plus, Barker Weber Insurance, and Leave It to Beavers Auto Detailing.
I just have to add one thing about Leave It to Beavers. I mean, you know how disgusting my car is.
Oh my God, it's a dump.
I mean, it really is. We live in it, right? It's our cafeteria, our study hall, my office, all the things. I had them pick it up. I had Leave It to the Beavers pick up the Navigator before we went up north, and you could have eaten off of the floor. It looked brand new.
Beautiful.
Don't look at it today.
Yeah.
But they'll be touching it again before the end of the week.
There might be some wrappers on the floor. Jennifer, great podcast. I'll see you next month.
All right, you got it.